Right. Welcome to Code Review Weekly. So my first point, I just wanted to keep you up to speed. So Thomas was on the call. Hi, Thomas. He's digging and finding improvements for the total blocking time on the discussions tab, looking to improve that. And he's already found some improvements where we load the virtual scrolling library dynamically, but that while discussing that as a team, we figured out it would be worth trying to implement the virtual scrolling that we had on the changes tab. Now that it's fully released and we already got the learnings about the find on page and everything, we're looking like, let's see the impact of doing this on the discussions, what metrics will be impacted by how much before we pursue anything. So this will be a somewhat of a low effort kind of thing, just to get an understanding about what would be the impact if you pursue this on the discussions tab as well. I'm not sure if we'll be able to ship it during this milestone, but we'll at least have the learnings from that experimentation to see by how much would the metrics change. Okay.
Yeah, I was just you sort of address it, but any concerns about find on page, and I only say that because it looks like there's at least a couple of people who are experiencing issues with find on page in the changes tab as of this week.
I saw one.
Both Bob, and then someone else commented in the issue after Bob left his comment that it's not working correctly for either one of them.
Mm-hmm. So the one thing that might be happening is either two things. Either there's a bug that we're not disabling the virtual scrolling when the person triggers that. So there might be some problems in detecting the different modifier keys that people use in different systems. So there might be a problem there where the mitigation strategy that we have is not working in some conditions. The other is that when we do that and we disable the virtual scrolling, there's a lot of work being done by the browser. It might not be immediate. And if it doesn't appear right away, they label that as a bug. So that's why we're trying to figure out what scenario is. And there might be some other scenarios that we don't understand yet. I wouldn't call it a concern. The fact that it's been working well for the past couple of weeks means that it might be an outlier here, but we'll keep an eye on that and follow through and fix anything we might need to fix. It's a parallel topic to the experimentation and discussions tab. Like I said, we don't expect it to ship it because, like we talked about on the other time, like one thing is to enable the virtual scrolling, the other is to deal with the fallout of that, making sure that the links to the notes work, making sure that all of the pagination, I don't think we have pagination, but all of the functionality works. There's also on the notes, we have the option to change the order where it goes from most recent to oldest and vice versa. So you might have to run a few things there to fix a few things in that regard too. So we'll see. Just wanted to keep you in the loop that we might give that a try.
Yeah, I think that's promising.
Thanks.
It was improvement before, so it should be good here.
Okay. Your sound is a bit choppy, Kai. I don't know if it's just me. Did you hear that too,
Matt?
Matt?
Like a robot.
Okay. So we could hear it, but it was a bit choppy.
It was fine in the beginning, and just when you just talked, it was
crackling.
Crackly. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Right. Good that you have the next point now, Kai. Try it out. See if it's fixed.
Yeah. I guess we'll see if it's fixed. Is that better now? Or
yes.
No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's interesting. And I was just going to ask for an update on engineering allocation. I'll also preface this and say I'm probably just going to add it as like a standing item for weekly sync until we're out of engineering allocation. I think it'll be the one thing that we want to know. So
that's a great idea. So I'll give you an update. I'll also, my first point here is that, so I have to report on this every week in a different call. So when I do that, I will start also updating the epic, this one that I linked here with that status. And I'll just try to keep that better up to date, which I had not been doing until this morning. So I'll try to do that just for transparency purposes. But yeah, so where we are right now, there's really just two InfraDev issues that we're working on. There's this Gitaly N+1 errors where we Patrick fixed a couple things already, which had a lot of improvements, but then we found one more case where it looks like we're running into the same problem. Caillou helped kind of debug that. I think it's with, if you have lots of comments on lots of different commits, then the number of calls we make to Gitly just balloons. So we're going to try to see what we can do about that. And then the other main one that we're working on is around caching for the mergeability, the merge request mergeability check worker. That's the other InfraDev issue. So we had a fix, we rolled it out, it broke things in production, we flipped the feature flag off right away. So it was good that we were able to mitigate that. We found a kind of a new way to do it that has just been merged. So now we can try the feature flag process again. And in a much slower rollout plan this time to try to prevent any problems or catch problems earlier. So those are the two main InfraDev issues. There's one more that's just called like production readiness improvement that's on our list, but there's not really much else that we need to do on that one. So I'll probably just close that out this week. They have the infrastructure team generates these reports, and that one specific issue is linked to all these production incidents. So if I close that, then it'll drastically change our standing in this report, but in a good way, I think. So I think we'll be okay to just close that one. The other thing we're focused on is error budget improvements. So some of the caching stuff that we had been working on already seems to be helping that a little bit. They also slightly changed how they measure the error budget, which will make our number keep going up. It's with how they time the buckets of data they collect. So they have a little longer span, which means we can, we're getting the same number of errors, but it'll look like slightly less because we're less strict on the reporting of it. So so that's good. So our rate is inching up very slowly, like 0.1% a day or something like that, but it's over the measurements over 28 days, and they just made that change a few days ago. So as that 28 days fills up with this new reporting, then our number will keep going up.
Matt, question on, do you have a link for that incident in production or anything? Was that caused by the caching rollout? Or
Yeah, I have it here somewhere. I'll quick find it.
It was the issue when merge trains last weekend. It broke, the merge train broke as we rolled out caching to the merge check, and so the merge trains had like a different path and didn't know, and so they got like a cache status and just didn't look at all.
Okay.
Right. I'll put the link in here. Right. And yeah, the issue we ran into is that, our tests didn't cover it. And then the automated tests eventually caught it, but not until like it was in production. And then that test didn't really alert correctly. So one of the things we're going to fix is we kind of promoted that test to be a little more severe when it fails. So that's one thing. I think that's already done. We're also going to, one step we missed, we didn't enable the feature flag and staging at first. So we might have caught it there. So we're working on a fix to the chat ops feature flag tool will now check to see what the status is in staging before you set it in production, just to kind of verify and then warn you if you're trying to do something crazy again. Yeah, so there was that. And then the other thing we're doing, we're just trying to clean up the feature flag template, the rollout issue template, trying to make it a little more clear what the expectations are there. So those were some of the root cause or the actions that came out of it. Yeah,
got it.
We're going to move forward.
Are you aware of the upcoming new staging thing, new work that's being done?
I don't think so.
I'll link
Maybe.
it here.
I don't know. Yeah.
I'll link here about the upcoming new staging. so you can follow along, because I think that would help mitigate a bunch of things, because different teams require different things from staging, and we do different kinds of testing on staging, and this will help us be more, reliable testing and staging.
All right.
Okay, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, Kai, you had another question?
Yeah, and I guess the crackling's back, but I don't have a good fix for that. Does it
It's okay
sound
right
fine
now.
now?
You're good.
Maybe you just
Great, lovely. Maybe it's the background. I know it might. Whatever. I'll mess with it later. The first one is the N+1. It might be good, Annabelle and Andre, if you look at that. The issue is that if you know how we show diffs in the overview tab, and we show the comments underneath them. And so every time like a new commit happens, we still have to show you the old version of the diff. And so what happens in like large MRs that go on for a long period of time is lots of comments happen on older diffs that are no longer relevant, but we have to go fetch those diffs every time. And that's where that's where like all the Gitly calls come from. I don't know that there's like legitimately a backend fix for that. Gary's going to look, but we may need to think like creatively about like UI ways to deal with that, like not loading those threads. I know maybe if they're collapsed, we don't actually fetch them until something else. I don't know if we do that already, or like other front end options to sort of help mitigate that. But it may be useful to, I don't know if there's any action for you yet, but it's something that I would start thinking about, because this feels like it's going to bridge into UI experience problems, not backend problems.
If someone comments on a diff and then the author changes it, it does get automatically collapsed, right? And it says so-and-so commented on an outdated diff, but then that can be reopened again if you keep commenting on it. Is that the problem?
Doesn't always close it. It says it's an outdated diff, but it only collapses by default if they're resolved. So it does, just by committing to the same file, that doesn't necessarily make it resolved, right? Because you could have comments on like line 12 and line 20, and I could change line 12 and it would resolve that comment thread, but it wouldn't resolve the comment thread for line 20. And so we'd still have to go fetch the old diff for the line 20 where we still need to load that.
Okay. Yeah, that might be worth looking into. We can think of a different way to show that.
The most immediate way that we could work on that is that we remove that from the payload, because we don't need to. If we remove the diff lines from the payload and we just add a button to show the diffs, like you'd click a button to show the diffs and then you would request one by one, you would have an impact on the UX, but also you would only request it when we actually need it. So yeah, there's a couple of ideas that have floated around about starting to not display the entire archive of notes all of the time on the discussions, where we just display the last time frame, like the last 2 weeks or something. And then for anything beyond that, we would request that by explicit clicking a button, which starts being very beneficial for this topic when we have large MRs that are going on with discussion for a long time. It might be tricky if you have unresolved discussions beyond 2 weeks. But anyway, that's just getting in smarter into the loading of the data in notes. But okay. Is there an issue for something like that? No.
I don't think there's any issues. I think for now, I would say like follow along to that infra issue and keep tabs on it, just so I don't know what progress Gary will make today or when he looks at it again, but it does feel like it'll be hard to solve solely on the back end. So it may be one of those things that we've got to think about in a different way at some point. So just keep an eye on that one.
So the issue linked is about the publish action in the drafts. So you're saying that somewhere down the discussion, you identified something else. Is that it?
Yeah, I would ignore the title. I don't think it's not all draft controller now. Now it's just like calls to Gitly at this point. Basically, they're annoyed with the number of calls to Gitly on the merge request. It's not draft controller exclusive anymore. Yeah.
All right. I'll keep an eye on that and I'll get involved. Thanks.
Yep. And then Matt, the other question for you is like, it sounds like progress is fairly far along, other than this like N+1 issue, which sort of is what it is. And then the caching I know is already back in either MR review or close to being like rolled out. Like, and with error budgets being changed, I think Christopher said we probably won't see that effect for like 28 days. Or Rachel said that because of the way
Right.
the data works.
Yes. Yep.
It sounds like we'd be above thresholds sort of immediately, and we'd be clear of infra dev issues within, a week maybe. Is it, what is sort of the expectation or feeling right now of like reducing or coming out of engineering allocation?
That is a great question, and probably another thing we should cover every week until we're out of this, because I don't know the answer, and it's not. There wasn't really a kind of a definition of done for this, of like, how do we, where do we go, or what are the exit criteria? I know I've been kind of asking that, and Darva has too, of like, okay, when, like, what's next? How do we get out of this? So I think we'll be able to make a good case for it once the infradev issues are resolved. Definitely for at least reducing the percentage. But yeah, I'll keep trying to figure that out and let you know what I can dig up. That's, yeah. Bottom line, don't have an answer quite yet, but yeah, I think as we wrap up these last few infradev issues, and the good thing is that, knock on wood, there has not been a lot of, or there hasn't been any new production incidents related to our team. Like from an infradev standpoint, there hasn't been new infradev issues in about a month, I think, for our team. So those are all very good signs that there's not ongoing problems. We just have to clean up what we have currently.
Okay. Sounds like we'll just keep asking, and you're going to keep working on it. I agree. There's not a
Perfect.
clear definition of done or exit criteria, which is why I'm asking, because it's,
yep, that's fair.
It's weird. It's weird that we got in it and then there's no way out of this. So yeah, I'm fine with waiting until those infradev issues are closed to sort of bring it up again, though. That makes sense. I just added one more, which is the sub transactions work. I don't think we have anything, because the one to like whatever the internal ID was the sort of master one to fix all of the problems for us, but I think that's the case.
Yeah, so just for some background, so last Friday, I think it was, we identified that if anywhere in the code we're using sub transactions, that could cause a lot of database problems, especially with long running queries, and the way Postgres handles it is inferior. And there's some patches that we could try, but the goal was then, let's just we don't really need to use them, so let's just try to get rid of all the sub transactions in the code. So they ran a report that's like, okay, here's all of the models in our code base that are using sub transactions. All of them need to get fixed. So we got 4 new issues created on Friday, infradev, P1 infradev issues. But yeah, there was none of our code was actually using it directly, but we were using, like common classes that indirectly, if you follow the chain, were using them. So by fixing it in one spot, that fixed it. Like one change around the internal ID, the one that Kai mentioned, that fixed one case. And then there was one other change that was like a safe find or create by some call that fixed the other 3 right away. So we actually, other than investigating and figuring out, oh, okay, the merge request object uses an internal ID, and the diff note and the discussion note use this other method. So we could link it to those. So once those were resolved, then all of our problems went away. So nothing else we need to do there, is the short answer.
Cool, thanks. Just wanted to make sure.
Cool. Then I have my last point. Just following up a discussion on Slack, and I want to take the opportunity that we're all here, although we might want to follow up this into the UX weekly or something. But I found that very interesting discussion about what do they call it? Unbreaking collaboration, is it? Unbreaking code collaboration. And I was talking to Tomasz this morning, and following that whole conversation that we've had in the past about supporting better the attachment of patch files onto the MR, I feel like that if we invest some more work on that workflow, I feel like we can then make that whole thing much easier and automatic from the user's perspective that are using the GitLab workflow extension, but also people that are producing their own patches. It would be basically like whatever tool you use, if you add a patch, you would benefit from this work. And somebody was saying, I think, yeah, Annabelle, you're saying like take all of it or none of it. I think we can try to solve that at a UI level, in that a patch could have apply parts of this patch, and then you could selectively remove and add lines from the patch to the commit that we'll be applying. Something like that might make sense, but I don't know how valid and how interesting that is. But I just want to bring it up that it has been discussed in the past, and it feels like it would be interesting for more than just the workflow that starts on the GitLab extension, also for people attaching patches on there. So yeah, does that make sense at all, or am I missing parts of the discussion?
I don't have anything specific to add right now. I think that the whole concept is really cool. I would have loved it when I was a developer. I don't know how many other people would have really liked this. I don't know. But I love the idea of being able to propose this big number of changes via multiple files and then kind of push it up, and it would just appear in the merge request, and that author could say, oh, okay, let me review these suggestions all at once. Yes, no, apply them if not, or apply them if they want to, reject them if not, and it would be like a mini merge request within the merge request. I don't know. I understand the reasons why we might want to use snippets for that. I think there's many issues I've looked at regarding this. I don't love the idea of saving these as snippets that you just have. I mean, you can't scope them to a certain merge request. They're just in your snippets. And I don't know why you might want to reuse those in the future. I understand the use case for like creating a snippet to set up something locally for development or testing purposes that you might want to reuse, but I don't know yet how this would work. But I think that the concept is really cool. And especially if we could use a custom Git extension or something that apparently we already had. And I didn't even know that you could push to a merge request right away via that quick command that we have, or Git. I don't know what it is actually, but I think there are a lot of opportunities. I think it needs a lot of research because I don't know how many people actually want this.
Yeah.
And this would be like something we could do all the research for too, like right now as part of our engineering allocation
effort.
Break. Yeah. So we could kind of have it all ready to go or not by the time it's finished.
Yeah, it definitely feels like something worth doing some user research to see how to validate. I know that if you ask Paul Slaughter, he will love it and he will say that he wants it tomorrow or yesterday. But yeah, it would be worth doing some user research, just trying to understand how prevalent this would be.
I was going to say, it's pretty rare that I use patches, but when I use patches, something like this would be really nice. So rare, but in those instances, very useful. And almost all the time that I use patches is when Paul is on my MR.
do you think that you'd use them more if you knew that they were easily applicable?
Yeah, probably. Because right now, I mean, it's just like, okay, here's a file and then like download it, do something on your local. But yeah, if it was okay, easier in the UI, it would be more useful. Okay,
Kai, do you want to go to your question? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, we're at time. I was curious, like, given that we have apply suggestion logic already, which means that there's like an endpoint and a path to applying through sort of the front end of the UI. If we like detected a patch file, like a .patch uploaded as a attachment, what would be like the level of effort to just add an apply button to that attachment? via the current like suggestions stuff?
I think it would have to be a different endpoint because suggestions don't or at least improved the endpoint because they don't support multiple files. There's one thing that I can tell you this: if we want to make the user load the patch file on just the front end, show the lines, they could be unselecting certain lines and then sending that to the server to apply. That would be doable and straightforward enough on the front end. The application on the back end might not be as simple, and that I don't know, Matt, if you have any thoughts. But maybe we can create an issue for that and then eventually discuss it there and bring in the engineers to weigh in. Because it feels like from the front end, it would be definitely doable to detect a patch file on a comment, add a button, and then smart application of patches or something, and it would allow the user to select that. That would be doable on the front end. So
yeah, I was thinking like MVC, there's like no UI other than an apply button, right? Like you can apply the patch in whole, or you could download it and do it, right? That would be the simplest thing
MVC,
to do, is not
yeah.
give people like flexibility over it, but be
that
like,
will
you
come
can
later.
apply the patch.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, wait, we're out of time. Okay, never mind.
Yeah. But we can keep talking about it on Slack or on the UX call.
Thanks, everyone. It's good to see you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.